Good evening, and thank you for joining tonight's virtual public meeting hosted by Arapahoe County. My name is Jason Reynolds. I am the current planning manager in our Public Works and Development Department, and I will be your host and moderator this evening as we introduce the Watkins-Bennett Area Vision Study. First, let's talk about what you can expect for the next hour. And again, thank you for joining us. This event will be interactive and informative with several opportunities for you to talk to us. Our team will provide a presentation first, and then we'll go into a live Q&A discussion. You can also engage by answering poll questions throughout the event. As you learn about the vision study, please think about questions, comments, or ideas you have for our staff. If you've joined online, you can submit your questions or comments right below the video player. Those will be read aloud for our panelists to answer. And if you dialed in, press *3 on your phone to connect with one of our operators who will get you in the queue to ask your question live. Again, that's *3 on your phone to connect with one of our operators. For those of you who are participating by phone, you can download the presentation visuals from the project page, which is on our website, www.arapahoegov.com/Watkins-Bennett Study. That's all one word, Watkins-Bennett Study after the slash. Let's start by jumping right in with a quick poll question for you. To help guide our discussion tonight, we'd love to know, what part of the county do you live in? Press the numbers on your phone or enter your answer below the video player if you're online. So what part of the county do you live in? Press 1 for close to Watkins. Press 2 for close to or in Bennett. Press 3 for between Watkins and Bennett. Press 4 for in another area of Arapahoe County. And press 5 for if you don't live in Arapahoe County. Please record your answer now on the phone or online below the video player, and I'll repeat those options for what part of the county you live in. 1 for close to Watkins, 2 for close to or in Bennett, 3 for between Watkins and Bennett, 4 for in another area of Arapahoe County, and 5 for not living in Arapahoe County. You'll hear from Commissioner Jeff Baker of District 3 after this poll, and we'll give just a moment for those poll results to come in. And with that, it appears that about half of the callers are close to or in Bennett, and half are between Watkins and Bennett. And we have none from other areas of Arapahoe County on the line right now. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Baker. Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jason, and welcome everyone. On behalf of the entire Board of County Commissioners, I want to express my gratitude for your participation in this process and in events like these. It's important that decision makers, staff, and the residents come together in developing a clear vision for the future of our communities. We all want an excellent quality of life for ourselves and our neighbors. This meeting is an example, a shining example, of how together we can guide growth and ensure that our communities will meet the needs of our citizens today, tomorrow, and for future generations. We're here tonight to discuss the 42 square mile area that extends 4 miles south of I-70 between Imboden Road and Yulee Mile Road. This region is known for charming rural character, but will likely greet the expanding metropolitan area over the next 25 years. We're studying this area because we want your input on guiding the future of the region ahead of development occurring. Changing conditions along the I-70 corridor, such as the new communities at Sky Ranch and Prosper, and potential developments at the Colorado Air and Spaceport, the Transport Project, and other sites in Aurora and Adams County also impact land uses in this study area. This vision study will identify policies, actions, and implementation strategies for land use, economic development, transportation infrastructure, open spaces, recreation, and other important topics. We want to ensure that we're looking at this growth holistically so that it can be better managed and meet the expectations of our homeowners and our business owners. Again, thank you for joining us and for being a part of this process to set broad goals and strategies for your community. Jason, back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. If you've just joined us, welcome. And a reminder that if you dialed in, you can download and follow along with the visual slides at www.arapahoegov.com/Watkins-Bennett Study, all one word. Also, a recording of the event will be available on the project webpage tomorrow. Q&A will follow the presentation, and you can ask questions or simply provide some thoughts and ideas by pressing *3 on the phone or typing your question below the video player online. And I have seen some online questions come in already, so thank you for those. And a quick reminder that we have an online survey available beginning today, and we want to hear more from you. Take the survey after the meeting or tomorrow while the information is still fresh in your mind, and you can find that survey at our website, www.arapahoegov.com/Watkins-Bennett Study. Next, you'll hear from Loretta Daniel, who manages our long-range planning section. She's going to introduce this study. Loretta, over to you.
Thank you, Jason, and welcome everyone. This is the first of 3 virtual meetings we will have on the Watkins-Bennett Area Vision Study. This also is the first time we're bringing this topic to the local community for discussion. During the presentation, we're going to give you more details about what this type of study is and the goals. We'll also give an overview or background information about the study area, including current demographics, existing policy and zoning, details about the transportation network, water and sanitation districts, public facilities, and more. And again, we want to hear from you about the issues and opportunities for this area through a lively Q&A session after the presentation. You may want to take notes about any questions you have as we go along. If you are joining online, you may enter your questions at any time. Let's start with what a vision study is and why we do them. The vision study will present goals, guiding principles, and recommendations that will guide the county's daily decisions. A vision study becomes a priority when an area or region is likely to experience future growth. And this study was identified as a high priority action in the county's comprehensive plan, which was updated in 2018. The study area lies in the path of the eastern expansion of the metro region along I-70, so now is the right time to consider a plan for the future. The county wants to create a community-supported vision that will guide future land use, housing, transportation, and community facilities that will provide and maintain an excellent quality of life for residents now and for our future generations. For example, some outcomes of the study are to maintain and preserve the rural lifestyle and character in the region, while also finding a balanced approach to introducing new housing on different lot sizes, employment opportunities, and community-serving facilities. This vision study will be incorporated into the county's comprehensive plan, which provides policy guidance for what we want our county to be like in the future and charts a course to get there. This vision study will also provide a clear but flexible framework to guide growth over the next 20 to 30 years, including both short and long-term goals that are developed with citizen input. Now let's talk about the process of how this study will come together. We're in phase 1 now, which is listen and define. We're gathering valuable information about the issues and opportunities in the area from the public and a variety of stakeholders. Aside from tonight's meeting, the best way to get involved in this phase is to take our online survey. It's critical that we learn about your ideas and what's most important to you. In phase 2, we will envision and prepare land use concepts to share with you based on future population projections. In Phase 3, we will refine and assess the land use concepts based on your feedback and identify a preferred land use concept. This phase will also result in a draft vision study. And finally, we will confirm and adopt the plan. Throughout this process, 3 virtual public meetings will be held, and various opportunities for you to engage feedback will be available. In each phase, we will also engage the business community, economic partners, developers, our municipal partners, and more people. Let's take a deeper dive into the study area. It's a 42 square mile area between Watkins and Bennett, and specifically the areas between Imboden Road and Yulee Road. It extends 4 miles south from I-70 and is bordered by Box Elder Creek on the west and Kiowa Creek on the east. For context, the boundary is about 13 miles east of the I-70 and E-470 interchange. The area is 12 miles from DIA and about 24 miles to downtown Denver as the crow flies. It's also close to the Colorado Air and Spaceport. Within the study area, there's a section called the Urban Reserve. This area has been identified as having the greatest potential to accommodate future urban development and is approximately 19 square miles. And it extends 1 to 2 miles south of I-70. The Urban Reserve will be a primary focus area of the study. You may be familiar with the Sky Ranch and Prosper communities that are just to the west of the study area. This is the type of development that could occur in some parts of the Urban Reserve in the study area. Ultimately, these 2 master plan communities could have up to 12,000 residential units and could accommodate around 30,000 people and potentially have up to 10 million square feet of mixed use and retail and office uses. Schools, fire stations, and police stations are planned in these communities. We've covered the study area and some high-level goals and outcomes, as well as the process. Before I turned over to my colleague, Larry Mugler, to talk more about existing conditions, I wanted to remind everyone that we'd really like you to take 10 minutes after the call or tomorrow to fill out the online survey and tell us more about your thoughts on the vision study. Just visit www.arapahoegov.com/Watkins-Bennett Study to get the survey. And don't forget to tell a neighbor. You can also view the existing conditions report on the webpage. This report provides more background information for the study area. Larry, over to you.
Thank you, Loretta, and hello, everyone. For a vision study such as this, it is important to understand the characteristics of the existing population. Who lives in the area today? How do they live? What do they do for work, etc.? We can't plan without truly understanding the community today. The U.S. Census Bureau conducts an annual sample survey of the population that provides us with helpful details. Here's a sampling of what we know about the people living in the study area. The most recent 2019 data tells us the population is at 1,800 people, a growth of about 14% from 2010. That is a similar growth rate to what has happened across the entire Arapahoe County. The median age is at 48.4, which means half the people are older than that and half younger. This is significantly older than the county median age. As of 2018, there were 653 households, which is double the amount that existed in 2000. The average household size is 2.84 people per household, much higher than the county average of 2.66, and about 42% of the heads of household are female. The median income in 2018 was over $100,000 a year. That's $24,000 higher than the county median, and there are very few households in the study area that are below the poverty line. Employment information is a bit more difficult to gather, but we know most people are working in agriculture, wholesale trade, or construction, and a large percentage work in the services sector. In Phase 2, we will present concepts for future land use. These concepts will be developed based on growth forecasting. By 2045, the population of the study area is projected to grow to at least 6,700 people. The forecasting shows the potential for a high growth scenario with upwards of 32,800 people by 2045. With population growth comes employment growth, which is expected to occur generally either north or west of the study area. Employment within the study area will primarily service the local population. Now that we have a sense of the population, let's talk more about current land use in the study area. What is land use? Well, it is how we take the natural environment and develop it for economic and cultural activities like agriculture, residential homes, industrial or commercial businesses, or recreation. The process used to manage these land uses is the Land Development Code, which includes the county's zoning provisions. In the study area, there are 5 different types of zoning districts, ranging from large agricultural estate, or AE, with minimum lot sizes of 35 acres, and many are much larger, to the much smaller rural residential B, or RRB district, with a minimum lot size of 2.41 acres. It is important to understand the existing zoning and land uses as we develop a vision for the future. There are 34 landowners in the study area that have parcels of 150 or more acres. That's 12.4 square miles. Some of these are planned for future developments. Several large parcels adjacent to I-70 are owned by land management companies, partnerships, or family trusts. Prosper Farms owns a 533-acre parcel east of the Prosper community, and it's important to note that there are no state land board parcels in the study area. A major land use adjacent to the study area is the Colorado Air and Spaceport, just to the north in Adams County. The current airfield restrictions affect a 1.5 square mile portion of the study area south of I-70. Currently, there are 2 types of land use restriction areas around the spaceport. The broad restriction area surrounding the spaceport limits commercial and industrial structures. Any that are built must meet federal aviation regulations and may not be gathering places like a movie theater or a shopping center. The smaller restricted areas within the boundary are not allowed for any new residential uses, with the only exception being lots that were platted before the adoption of these restriction areas, primarily before the airport was there. We've covered the demographics and the land uses. Next, we're going to talk about existing public facilities and infrastructure, but first we're going to go to another poll question. Jason, back to you.
All right, thanks, Larry. So remember, everyone, you can press the corresponding numbers on your phone or enter the answers just by typing the number. You don't have to respond with words. Just type the number below the video player online. And this next question is, which of the following do you feel best defines the rural character of this area? So what for you best defines the rural character of this area? Press or type 1 for wildlife and nature, 2 for farm and ranch lands, 3 for residential lots with widely spaced homes, 4 for rural roadways, 5 for scenic beauty of the natural lands. Please record your answer either on the phone or below the video player. And again, what best defines rural character for you in this area? 1, wildlife and nature, 2, farm and ranch lands, 3, residential lots with widely spaced homes, 4, rural roadways, 5, for scenic beauty of the natural lands. And we'll wait a moment or two while folks record their answers. And so far, 90% of the folks who have responded say that farm and ranch lands are what best define the rural character of the study area. Let's get back to Larry now for some more background information.
Let's talk about transportation. Roads are critical in getting you where you need to be. There may not currently be much congestion in this area, and only a few of the roads are contiguous across the study area. Now think about what it might be like if the population is on the high end of the forecasting with nearly 33,000 people in 2045. This is why we plan. Our colleagues in the Transportation Department of the county are updating their Transportation Master Plan for 2040. However, the current plan for 2035 calls for several improvements based on household and employment forecasts, including connecting 6th Avenue through the study area, that's with the red line, circle around it, extending Manila Road south to the county line, the other red circle, paving some current gravel roads, road widening projects, and several interchange improvements on I-70. Now we'll talk about water. The study area currently relies on individual wells and on-site waste treatment systems. However, neighboring areas such as Bennett, Sky Ranch, and Prosper have centralized services. Groundwater is managed through a complex system of districts and state agencies. Limited groundwater and lack of public water infrastructure are likely to be a limit on growth. Now we'll look at a range of other local public services and facilities in the area, all critical components to a well-functioning, safe community. For fire, emergency, medical services, Bennett Watkins Fire Rescue provides service to a 325 square mile area in Arapahoe and Adams counties and has 3 stations close to the study area. 2 stations that are north of I-70 are fully staffed, and the Stroudsburg Fire Protection District serves a small portion of the eastern part of the study area. The study area also is served by the Bennett School District, which is District 29J. They provide elementary, middle, and high schools. Enrollment has been increasing since the 2014 school year. This district also serves portions of the Sky Ranch and Prosper communities. The Kiowa Creek North open space is 256 acres and the only open space within the study area owned by the county. The county owns it and is working on a plan for hiking trails, wildlife viewing areas, and other amenities for when it becomes available to the public. Open Spaces is currently updating their master plan as well, another great process to get involved in and make an impact. Finally, the nearest libraries are the Kelver Library in Byers and the Anythink Library in Bennett. We can also look at farmland within the study area. There are significant areas of non-irrigated farmland in the study area. Throughout the study area, dry land agriculture is occurring where residential development has not occurred, with a very limited amount of irrigated farmland. Floodplains are also an important feature of the study area. The 100-year floodplains for Box Elder and Kiowa Creeks run through the study area. The county issues floodplain development permits and evaluates all impacts of proposed activities in the floodplains. In the past few years, the county has developed a drainage plan for Kiowa Creek and Wolf Creek, just to the east of the study area, to better determine the extent of the floodplain and identify any stream stabilization measures or improvements that are needed. Talk a little bit about wildlife. The natural environment is a treasured feature of the study area, and it's important to keep wildlife habitat, migration patterns, and creek corridors in mind when planning for future development. The Open Space Master Plan has identified potential priority areas for wildlife habitat, and in the study area, these are along the creek corridors. Finally, we'll look at mineral resources. Oil and gas activity occurs throughout the study area, and some well pads are planned for just west of the study area in the Prosper development. Over the next 18 months, the county has been gathering community and industry feedback in a balanced approach effort to update oil and gas regulations. If you're interested in more information about that process, www.arapahogov.com/oil-and-gas. That concludes our presentation for the scope of the study and background information. We know that was a lot, so here's a very brief summary of key points to remember as we open up for questions and answers. More than half of the land in the study area, or 26 square miles, is undeveloped, and approximately 16.5 square miles is in large lot residential uses or open space. Sky Ranch and Prosper can accommodate a significant portion of future growth in East Arapahoe County, and future employment uses in Adams County and Aurora could increase the demand for housing in this study area. There are several large parcels of land in one ownership, however, smaller parcels could develop. And the availability of water in the study area is an ongoing issue. Let's move into the questions and answers period.
All right, thank you, Larry, and thank you all for being here to learn more about this study. Now is the time to hear from you. What questions, comments, or ideas do you have? We want to know your thoughts. What are the issues or concerns you have? What opportunities do you see for the area? What is the defining element of the rural character in this region? Or what do you think the study should focus on related to future land development? You can press *3 on your phone to reach one of our greeters and join us live with questions or comments, or you can post them online below the video player. And we will start with an online question. Is the county rezoning my property? And will my rights to use my property change with this work? I think we have Loretta available to answer that.
Thanks, Jason. That is a really good question. And the answer is that no, this vision study will not change the zoning on your property. It's a high-level study to really set the stage for future land use, and it could potentially recommend changes to the Land Development Code, which does have zoning regulations. For the second part of your question there, the answer is that no, there will really be no changes to your rights to use your property. It would remain the same as with your current zoning.
All right. Thank you, Loretta, for that answer, and thank you for that question. Our next question is from James, and we also have another person online asking a similar question about eminent domain and whether there's a risk of eminent domain and when it might be used. I believe we have Larry available to answer this one.
Eminent domain we should probably define for those of you who may not be familiar with that term. Eminent domain is a power that governments have to take property when they pay for it for a particular public use. Probably the best example is when they're building a highway, and if they come across a piece of property they need for that right-of-way, but the owner is not willing to voluntarily sell it, the entity building that road can go to a court and ask for purchase of that land through eminent domain, where the court will appoint a appraiser. Each of the government and the owner will appoint an appraiser, and the three will come up with a agreed upon price that the government will pay to buy that right of way, even though the owner might not want to sell it. This study has no particular projects in mind that would require eminent domain. At the point in which a road might be built, the entity building that, whether it's the county or the State Highway Department of Transportation, may need to utilize that function, but it's not part of our study other than if we were to identify a need for a particular purpose, a public purpose, sometime in the future, but nothing coming out of our study will be requiring eminent domain.
All right, thank you, Larry, for that explanation. Next question is also from online, and the question is, why is the county doing this study now? And I believe Larry is also available to answer this one.
I'm ready. The study area was identified in the 2018 comprehensive plan as a priority topic. We knew that this was in the likely path of urban development, and we wanted to make sure that we were prepared for that from the county side. There are several planning studies occurring in the county as well. We've mentioned already the updates to the transportation plan and the open spaces master plan, and it's advantageous to us to coordinate those with a land use study as well. Besides our own efforts, Adams County is also doing several studies, such as a sub-area plan for the Colorado Air and Spaceport. The town of Bennett is in the process of updating their comprehensive plan. We're using this opportunity to share information with both Adams County and the town of Bennett.
All right. Thanks, Larry. And we have another online question. Why is the county trying to change things and bring in more people and businesses? We moved out here because we like the rural area. I believe we have Loretta available to answer this one.
Thank you, Jason. And again, this is a really good question. And it's really about the real estate market. It can put pressure on this area to change. And the county wants to get ahead of this and get your thoughts about what should happen in this area for both the short and the long term.
All right. We have a question online from Craig. What is the plan for residents that have AE, which is agricultural property that includes Kiowa Creek? And a reminder that the AE is a zone district that requires a minimum lot size of 35 acres. So it's the largest minimum lot size that Arapahoe County has. And Craig's wondering if the county will try to grab the creek from landowners to use as future open space and walking path areas.
I can take a crack at answering that. Floodplains are an important natural feature, but when they're in private ownership, it's really up to the private landowner to make sure that that flood area is able to serve its function when there is a flow in the stream. If it looked like it was really important to preserve a corridor along a creek, there wouldn't be any grabbing going through. The county open space department would negotiate with landowners to voluntarily either sell the creek corridor, the floodplain portion of their property, or to put a conservation easement on it, which would still allow the property owner to own it and use their property, but would keep the floodplain area from being developed in uses that would impact the ability of the stream to carry floodwater.
All right. Thank you, Larry, for that answer regarding the AE and the floodplain areas. We have a live caller next, and like to talk a bit about enterprise zones. So, Jack, if we could get you live.
My name is Jack Houlihan, and I'm a landowner in the south of the urban reserve in the study area. And I think with what's happening just to the west of us, you can see that there's going to be tremendous growth, because ever since the I-70 has been converted all the way from the south up through the north part and past the airport, there's been over 1 million square feet of buildings and companies that occupy that space along I-70. I thought it might be an area at least to look into is to maybe create an enterprise zone or one or two enterprise zones close to the city of either Watkins, unincorporated Watkins, or Bennett. And that was just my question based on the growth that's coming with all the new distribution centers being built up and the retail seeming to going through online rather than just retail prospers. Okay, that's my question or my input.
All right. Thank you for the thoughts on enterprise zones. Really appreciate the call, and we'll find someone to provide a response.
I think I can take that one. In terms of an enterprise zone, I mean, there's a whole host of kind of different definitions on that. But I think one thing that you bring up, Jack, is this idea that we could have sort of perhaps an industry hub or a way to concentrate some employment in particular areas. And you know, we're very aware of the work that Adams County is currently doing for a sub-area plan for the Colorado Air and Spaceport. And they're envisioning a lot of employment and supporting uses and some industrial uses in that area as well, too. So I think in terms of looking not only just in our study area, but looking a little broader into what Adams County is doing is something that we will be looking at. And that is a very interesting point that you are bringing up of having these this industrial or employment center nodes at particular locations where it would be advantageous because of access, for instance. Larry, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I don't know a lot about the implementation of enterprise zones, but I know that we would have to follow the state statutes that are used to create such zones. So it's something that we'll put on our list of things to research more so we know what the details are.
Great. Thank you for the thoughts about enterprise zones. And as Larry said, we will definitely do more research on that to see if that's a tool we might have available. Next up is an online question from Bob, who's asking about long-term water supply. What does Arapahoe County do to assure that homeowners will have a long-term water supply, especially when there are higher density developments like Prosper and Sky Ranch?
Water is an important topic whenever we're looking at growth in an area such as this. Both Sky Ranch and Prosper went through a process with the county where they had to lay out for the county commissioners before those developments were approved to document how they would be providing water to the development, particularly as it matured into a full development and where that water would come from. Those are always conditional kinds of things. Will the water be available for purchase when the development is ready to buy it? We'll have to wait and see on some of those. For our particular study, we are researching with folks like the state engineer on what the ability of the aquifers in the study area might be able to support. Can they handle something as dramatic as a 33,000 population community? Or is it more limited to the 6,000 population range? So that will be a key section of our study, the ability to provide water, and if there isn't enough groundwater, are there any possibilities for bringing surface water to the study area?
All right, thank you, Larry. And just a quick update on the last poll question. We had several more respondents on which of the following you felt was best defining the rural character of this area. Farm and ranch lands remains number one with about 70%. Scenic beauty is about 14%, and large spread apart residential lots, about 10% of the respondents felt that was the best way to define the rural character of the area. For the next question, it's from Craig, who is wondering if it matters if we do not want to be included in the urban development in this area and want to remain rural. And that is a great question, and that's really one of the reasons that we do vision studies like this. And I'll allow Loretta or Larry to expand on that.
Okay, I'll start. And thank you for the question, Craig. And that is clearly one of the things, as Jason was saying, why we are doing this study. And in our survey, we are asking very specifically about people's preferences for rural character to be preserved in the area or development. And we have several open-ended questions, and we would really like to hear your comments on that. So that's kind of our first part in this part of this phase 1 of the study. In our next phase, as we're developing the concepts, we are going to be looking, based on what we hear from the survey, and this is why it's so important to hear from you, we're going to be looking at those areas where people are indicating they would like to preserve the farmland, the rural character of it, and versus some areas where maybe there are nodes or places where development could occur. So that's why the survey is very important, and we really would like to hear from you on that. We also have the existing conditions report, too, that you can take a look at just for some more background information and perhaps provide some comments on that. Larry, do you have anything else to add?
It also will be important for us to think about if the study area, if portions of the study area want to remain rural, how can the county help support that? What are some of the tools that are available to guarantee rural development remains? As I mentioned on the open space question, conservation easements are one way of doing that to make sure that the land remains in farmland even after, say, the current landowner moves on. So we have examples throughout the metropolitan area, like Highlands Ranch, where the landowner said, this will always be rural, I want it to remain rural. When they passed away, their children said, we're ready to sell this and move on. So if we want the area to remain rural, we're going to have to find tools that will help us do that.
All right, thank you, Larry. And that's it's good to highlight the importance of participating in the survey, which is on our website. So encourage everyone to take a look at that survey and provide your feedback to us. Next is Lisa with a question about the intersection of Arkansas and Schumacher. How do we get the study to identify the need to open up that intersection?
The
one thing that
update to the
transportation
plan, probably the best way is to make sure that that is a priority item in the transportation master plan that's currently undergoing an update. From our side on the vision study, we would be looking at an intersection like that to say, is this a very necessary update and an improvement in order to support the vision's land uses that might be around that intersection. So that's a good example of the relationship between the transportation plan and this vision study.
All right. Thank you, Larry. We are going to take a quick break from the question and answers for our final poll question. Now that you've heard some about the scope of the study and the background information, we'd like to know, what is the most important topic that you think this study should address? Again, press the numbers on your phone or enter the number for your answer below the video player if you're participating online. So, what is the most important topic you think this study should address? Press 1 for a range of lot sizes and housing options, 2 for types and location of new development, 3 for farmland and ranch land conservation, 4 for employment opportunities, and press 5 for preservation of rural character. You can record your answer now on the phone or online below the video player. And again, the most important topic you think this study should address: 1, range of lot sizes and housing options, 2, types and location of new development, 3, farmland and ranch land conservation, 4, employment opportunities, 5, preservation of rural character. So please get those answers in, and we'll see how the poll results are coming along. So far, we've had a little over a dozen who have responded, and between farmland and ranchland conservation and preservation of rural character, that accounts for 60% of the responses, with the others being somewhat lower. I would say types and location of new development is another one that people would like us to consider, but the clear leader is farmland and ranchland conservation. So the next question we have from online is regarding irrigation water well rights and whether this study might have some effect on irrigation and water well rights.
Water rights are an important item in Colorado, and when someone owns a water right, they have a piece of property right that is theirs to hold on to until they wish to sell it or to turn it over to something else. So in our study, we'll be looking at the number of irrigation water rights that already exist within our study area and make sure that those are included in the inventory of water that is not available for urban development unless that property owner were willing to sell that water right. We are in conversation with both of the groundwater management districts that overlap our study area, and they've indicated very significantly that they see limited opportunities for new irrigation or individual groundwater wells to be drilled in our study area, that the resource is pretty well maxed out in terms of its ability to support development. So if you've got a good irrigation water right, hold on to it.
Thank you, Larry. Well, looking at our online questions, we have one from Angelita, who is asking about how sales of property between neighbors might affect other neighbors. So if I want to stay rural, but my neighbor sells their property, does the urban area just end up building around me?
Yes, I'll take this. And this is one thing about the vision study. If we do look at places where there is more urban development, we would also take a look at how there would be a transition or a buffer between urban development and rural properties, for instance. So that's really one point as well too. The other point too is really has to do with the zoning, because the zoning that could be in place could have fairly large setbacks that would be compatible between a rural use and something that might be a little bit more of a high intensity type of use, or more development. But I think this whole thing of buffers is really something we're going to be taking a look at, or these transitions. And it's not only with the between different types of uses, for instance, it's also too in protecting the creeks as well too. And we'll be taking a look at the floodplains as well too, just to see if there is any sort of a buffer that needs to be kind of moved in a little bit more to protect those floodplain areas. And again too, this is where we really would like to hear from you as to what you think are really important in terms of the compatibility between different types of uses.
All right. Thank you, Loretta. We had a question from Bruce about following up on eminent domain and the extension of 6th Avenue, and how could you even extend 6th Avenue through the stud area without using eminent domain? I think I'll call on Larry, who had responded to an earlier question about that.
Okay. In trying to put 6th Avenue through, of course, the first preferred option would be that we'd have willing landowners to provide some right-of-way at a reasonable price to extend that. The other option is that as development would take place, the developer would make sure to provide the roadway right-of-way so that 6th Avenue, as it borders their particular property, could be put through. But you may end up with some areas where it may not be a straight line roadway. If you've looked at the plans for Prosper and the way they've lined up 6th Avenue through their property, it's not a straight shot. So it may be necessary to build a continuous road, but not have it like as straight as a ruler, that we would have to bend it around properties that didn't work out right, or where there were natural constraints. You know, we've mentioned the floodplains. Getting 6th Avenue across a couple of those streams is going to be an engineering challenge.
Yes, and engineering challenge as well is very expensive. Bridges are quite pricey. And one thing Larry touched on is that developers will often dedicate the streets involved. And one example is Sky Ranch, where that developer is dedicating additional right-of-way at 6th and Monaghan. Both of those roads in the future will be much larger than they are today to accommodate the traffic from that development. So as Larry mentioned, with development, often the right-of-way comes along. Another online question, but before I get to that, just a reminder that if you have called in and would like to participate live in the Q&A, you can press *3 on your phone to reach one of our greeters so that you can participate via telephone. We've had a lot of online participation, and we really appreciate all the questions that are coming in, but if there are callers who have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. The next online question is a question about annexation, and is this about annexing property into cities or towns? I believe Larry can answer that one.
We are a county and therefore are not the party that does annexations. That's limited to towns and cities. One of the things for our study then is to focus on an area that we are assuming will remain unincorporated. That doesn't restrict our neighboring towns from deciding that they think this is an important area to include within their jurisdiction. And we know that both Aurora and Bennett have looked at portions of this study area as logical extensions of their communities. So our discussions with them as they participate on this study team will help us between both the town and the county say, are there some reasons why some portions of the stud area might be appropriate in those communities? Now, if you know your annexation statutes, neither of those communities can unilaterally bring your property into their boundaries. It would have to be through a petition from the landowner to be included in that community. But our study, the vision study, is going to assume that these 42 square miles will remain unincorporated through the horizon of the planning study.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And we have another online comment from PJ, who's saying that it angers them that when the county holds public meetings so the public can decide what I can or cannot do with my private property. You're taking away my rights as a landowner when you color my property on a map for one specific use. And I believe we have Loretta available to respond to that comment.
Yes, and that's an extremely good question. We're facing some challenges now when we are doing this type of a study virtually, rather than having in-person meetings where we can really clearly understand what your issues are And again, I'll have to point out this, the survey and your comments are really important. But I think what's important is that as we're moving forward into the next phase, when we are looking at concepts, we're basically going to set up a way that you can vote on these different alternatives that we will present. So we really want to clearly pinpoint what are the concerns in specific areas. And we're looking at different ways that we can do that on our website so that you can take a look at the options, think about them, reach out to us with questions, and then basically provide your input on that. So that's one way that we're trying to address your concerns as we're moving forward.
All right. Thank you, Loretta. And yeah, that's great emphasis on the importance of participating in this process and letting us know how you would like to see this area develop or be preserved. We have time for just one or two more questions this evening, but before we wrap up, I do want to remind you about the next steps in the process. Please take 10 minutes to take our online survey, which is on the website at www.arapahogov.com/Watkins-Bennett Study. And be sure to tell your neighbors about this process. We really want to hear from everyone in the study area. All the public comment from tonight and the survey will be presented to the Planning Commission in January, and then we'll begin phase 2, Envision, where we're going to develop some guiding principles, themes, and alternative land use concepts, and present these concepts at a public meeting for you to review, just as Loretta discussed a moment ago. We'll now wrap up with a final few questions. First up, will anything be done to help protect our agricultural businesses?
We've mentioned a couple of things already. One is the idea of conservation easements, and I know Craig has some follow-up question on that. Conservation easements are a way to define for the future what that land could be used for, and in this case, ongoing agricultural activities. So the county would pay the landowner a certain amount that would essentially buy up any rights to build on that property, but allow it to remain in agricultural activities. There are other things we can do besides things like that that cost money. And one is that we want to find ways to make sure that folks that are moving towards this area, moving into rural areas, maybe they're on a large lot parcel or in a subdivision, realize that they're moving into an agricultural community and will become aware of the kinds of activities that go on in an agricultural area. Major tractors and other farm equipment may be making noise early in the morning when they're out there. And we want to find ways to make sure that they're aware of those when they move in and don't start complaining after they move in and therefore impact the ability of the farmer or rancher to conduct their business. And there's an idea of, can we encourage more the concept of agritourism? Are there opportunities for our agricultural interest in the study area to bring the urban folks out to learn more about the way farms work? Those are just three examples. We'll be looking for other ways that you may have that might help us protect the agricultural interests that want to continue into the future.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And this will be our last question for the evening, and we do have a few others that were added recently, but unfortunately we don't have time for. And we have contact information, and for example, there was a great question about how to subdivide your property, which is something that somebody in the current planning division can definitely help you with, and we will be in touch. The last question for the evening is, if this plan is approved, will I need to do anything before I sell my land or build on it? And I believe we have Larry available for that one.
I will do that. It would be helpful if you become very familiar with our study after it's adopted so that you have a good sense of what the study anticipated would happen in your particular area. It's also very important to discuss any development ideas you have with the county planning staff as early as possible. Jason just mentioned that on the other question. That's a very important one for us. You don't have to have a formal application to give us a call, and we're glad to visit with you about what's possible and what the steps might be for you to move forward with some kind of activity. If you want to begin a land use process such as subdividing your property or going through a rezoning or even just getting a building permit for some structure on your property, it's a good idea to give us a call at the county planning office and start the conversation so we can describe for you what steps you might need to go through.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And in response to one of the questions, asking about the slides, those are available on the web page. And if you visit that page, you can download them. So thank you, everyone, for participating this evening. We really appreciate you being here with us and engaging in the process. This does conclude our event for the evening. Be sure to visit that website, take that survey at www.arapahoegov.com/Watkins-Bennett study and share that link with your neighbors. Encourage them to join in because we really do want to make this something that comes from you, that is really about how you want to see this area in the future. Have happy holidays. We hope to see you back at future public meetings in the new year. Good night.